host, Gloria Bailey Ray, the authentic coach. As I said, I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, and I really am so excited that you guys are here with me today. We are in season 3, The Becoming. And today we are continuing the conversation from last week. So, in part 1 last week, we talked about the saboteurs in the seats. Not everyone watching is rooting for you. We talked about visibility, awareness. We talked about the fact that when you stop hiding and start living out loud, people will notice. Now, some will support you, some are going to celebrate you, some will just simply watch. Not because they are cheering, but because they are waiting, studying, comparing, questioning, and unfortunately, for some, hoping that you will fall. And that's why becoming requires more confidence. It requires discernment. So today, in part 2, we're going to talk about what to do with that awareness, right? Because awareness without action can still leave you exposed. Yeah, it just plain and simple, exposed. So today's episode, I am actually calling The Saboteurs in the Seats, Part 2, Protecting Your Becoming Without Becoming Bitter. And I want to just tell you, listen, that part matters. It does, because the goal is not to become bitter. The goal is for you to become wise. And it's also, in my opinion, the goal is not to shut everybody out, but the goal is to stop giving everyone the same level of access to you. Does that make sense? You know, the goal here is for you to not stop trusting people, but the goal for you is to stop ignoring what people keep showing you. And I know some of you know what I'm talking about. You know, it keeps cropping up time and time again, and you keep thinking, uh, for whatever reason, it's really not what I'm seeing, but it is, right? So today we're going to unpack discernment. We're going to unpack boundaries, access, and how living out loud, or I should say, how you should keep living out loud without living exposed. Okay? So let's jump right in. Let's unpack this. Um, and I want to start with this. I guess I want to kind of preface this by saying I'm going to call it discernment. It's not paranoia, right? Yeah, discernment. It's not paranoia. So let's just start. Let's just start here. See, discernment does not mean that you assume everyone is against you. It also does not mean that you walk around suspicious and that you become cold, closed off, or hard. But what discernment does mean is that you need to pay attention. Discernment is wisdom. It's that quiet knowing that says, something about this does not feel aligned, right? Pay attention. Discernment is basically about when you stop overriding the red flags that that keep being shown to you. And you override it because you want the relationship, the friendship, the opportunity, or the connection to be what you had hoped it would be, right? But let me just tell you, discernment is just when you stop making excuses for patterns. Discernment is when you stop calling disrespect just how they are. And discernment is also about when you stop confusing attention with support. Come on now, hear me when I say that. See, let me just say that when you have discernment, That's when you realize that the spectators, the gossipers, and the supporters, it's not, they're not the same thing. You've got to lump all in, but let me help you separate them. And what do I mean by that? First of all, let me tell you that a spectator just simply watches, right? A gossiper repeats. Feel me on this. But a supporter covers, right? A spectator, in addition to watching, they want information. A gossiper not only repeats, as I said, but they want material. But the supporter who covers you, a supporter wants your good. All right? Is this becoming crystal clear to you? Let me just say this. For the spectator, they always want a seat. For the gossiper, they always looking for a story. But listen, a supporter, and this is what I want you ladies and any of you watching to get. A supporter wants to see you whole, right? See, that's why we're talking about discernment. This is why you cannot give everybody equal access to you. In your becoming season, you have to ask, who has earned access to this part of me? Hmm. Who has shown that they can hold my vulnerability with care? Who celebrates me without competing? Or better yet, who corrects me with love? And this is a big one. I think in several um, ways for me, you know, you got to ask yourself, who protects my name when I am not in the room? Versus who only shows up to watch. This is key. This is key. So many people, not just women, but so many people have not had people who sat in a room. They say they support you, but they don't protect your name. I've sat in meetings where people have blasted and talked about someone, and I had no knowledge about this person or how they do things. But guess what? By some, saboteur now exposing all of this person's flaws, what do you think that did to all the other people in the room? And nobody protected that person's name. So you have to have discernment. Pay attention. You want to know who only shows up to watch. And I tell you, these questions aren't about being paranoid. These questions are wise, right? Now, I'm shifting gears because I want to talk about access. See, access is a privilege. Hear me when I say that. Um, Access to your time is a privilege. Access to your energy is a privilege. Access to your story, to your dreams, to your vulnerability, even to your becoming. It's a privilege. That's the long and short of it. And if you spent years being that strong one, the dependable one, the available one, the understanding one, you may be used to giving access freely. Somebody calls you up, you answer. Somebody asks, you explain. Somebody needs, guess what? You show up. You even have dealt with people who pushes and you soften your boundaries for them. And look, like, oh my gosh, this for me, and I hope for you. Somebody wants to know your business, and what do? You tell them. Every single thing, every little nitty gritty. But in your becoming season, access from all of these people, it has to be earned. No question, no doubt about it. See, everybody does not get the same version of you. Why do I say that? Because some people will get love, from a distance. Some people will get limited information. Some will get kindness without access. Some people get prayers, but not proximity. And some people get the public version of your growth, but not, hear me when I say that, not the private details of your process. And I wanted to say this is not about being fake. It is not. But that is about being wise. See, you can be authentic without being available to everybody. You can be kind without being open for misuse. You could even be loving without giving people unlimited access to your life. And this piece, hear me, I need you to get this piece. Come on now. You can forgive someone and still not bring them into your inner circle. That's maturity. That's discernment. That is becoming, right? Just because you forgive someone, it does not mean that they continue to get the access that they once had. Not at all. So now that I'm talking about discernment, basically, I want to talk about, you know, about living out loud. What does that mean? Living out loud means you are living exposed, right? And this is something that I really want you to hear. Living out loud does not mean living exposed. There's a difference. When I say living out loud means that you're no longer ashamed of who you are. Living exposed means that you have no boundaries around what you share and with whom you share it. Living out loud, if you're living out loud, it means that you're walking in truth. But living exposed, hear me when I say this, ladies, means everybody gets access to your inner world. Living out loud means that you're no longer hiding your gifts, but living exposed means you're giving people private access that they have not earned. So when I say that, I want you to understand that you can be visible, but and still be private. You can be transparent and still be discerning. You can be vulnerable and still be wise. And this piece right here, listen, you can tell your story without handing people every chapter of your life. So what are you saying, authentic coach? What I'm saying is, you know, this is what I learned. That's what you can say. This is what I learned without giving people every detail of the wound. There are some people that every time they're around a group of people, they are still continuing to relive that same old wound over and over and over, right? And they're just continuing to just spew all of these things. But what I want you to understand is that you can live out loud without giving people every detail of your life, of that wound, what wounded you. See, you can share enough to help somebody else without reopening yourself up for people who only want to gossip, judge, or minimize. That is something I had to learn. Because when I started sharing my story through writing or speaking and coaching, I had to learn that not everybody could handle the backstage of my life, right? Yeah, right. See, some people, they can handle the finished product. They can even handle the book or the podcast or the quotes, the polished message. But what they cannot handle the process. They can't handle the tears. They can't handle my vulnerability. They cannot handle that private wrestling that came before the public confidence. And I want you to know that that's okay. They do not have to. because they were never assigned to the backstage. You need to understand this. Some people can watch from the balcony. Some people can sit in the audience. Some people can clap from a distance. But everybody does not get a backstage pass. All right? So we're in season 3, y'all, becoming. And I'm really keeping it real. It's tight, but it's right. And I am talking about the saboteurs in your life. I don't want you to become bitter. I want you to become wise, right? So let me talk about bitterness. When you realize that certain people did not support you, it can hurt. I know it. When you realize some people are only watching, it can sting. And when you realize people you thought would clap, stay silent, it can disappoint you. Let me just tell you, aha moment for me and for probably a lot of you, when you realize that strangers were more encouraging than people who knew your story, it can break your heart a little. Okay, but look, here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. Do not become bitter, become wise. Don't let unsupported growth, that's a good word, unsupported growth, make you hard. Let it make you clear. Don't let disappointment make you suspicious of everybody, but let it sharpen your discernment. And don't let people's silence make you silent again. What I want you to do is to let it remind you that your voice was never dependent upon their approval. You hear me? Listen, bitterness builds walls. Wisdom builds boundaries. And there is a difference, right? Because a wall says no one can come in, but a boundary says access requires alignment. Hmm. A wall says I do not trust anybody, but a boundary says trust is earned. A wall, when you're building a wall around you, the wall basically says that I'm still controlled by what happened. Whereas a boundary will say, I learned from what happened. And in this becoming season, I am not building walls from pain. All of us, we're building boundaries from wisdom. And that's the difference. That is the difference. So, in your season of becoming, let me talk to you about what protection looks like in real life. What does it really look like? Your protection. Well, first of all, it looks like pausing before you share. It looks like asking, why am I telling this person this? But, all right, discernment. It also looks like noticing how people respond when you win. It looks like paying attention to who celebrates you and who gets quiet. And I look, I want to stick a pin in that. I want you to really and truly pay attention. Look around. Sometimes we can get so caught up with all the exterior trappings around us, but really and truly pay attention to the people who celebrate you and the people who are quiet. Right? That is important. And when we talk about, you know, paying attention before you sure, protecting, your becoming, what does that look like? Let me just say, um, what it looks like is you no longer announcing every move before you make it. What this looks like in your becoming, it looks like protecting the early stages of your dreams. It looks like sharing your vision with builders, not breakers. Oh, come on. I know you hear me when I say that. It looks like not explaining your boundaries to people who are committed continually to violate them, right? Protecting, in your becoming season. Let me just tell you, it looks like letting people be disappointed without you changing your decision. It looks like not shrinking just because somebody else is uncomfortable with your confidence, right? It also, let me just say this, it also looks like saying, I love you, but I am not discussing that. And I'm just going to challenge you to just try to try this sometimes. Right? People ask you questions, they want to get all deep down and into your business, right? But you need to say, hey, you know what? I love you, but I'm not discussing that, right? How about this? some Somebody wants to have this conversation, you said, you know what, I'm not available for that conversation. Just try that. How about this one? I don't need to explain this any further, right? Or better yet, that part of my life is private. Or you can even say, I'm moving differently now, right? This is how you start to become, have discernment, grow, right? Because when you start to practice that, remember I say no is a complete sentence. No means no. But for those of you, if you're like myself, um, no over explaining, none of that. Just learn how to basically say, you know what? I'm not available for that conversation. Because people ask you stuff and you got to stop and say, why are they asking me that? Right? Right. That is how protection shows up, y'all. It's not always loud. It's not dramatic. But I want you to understand that sometimes protection is quiet. It's a pause. Um, Protection, in many cases, is not about responding. Sometimes protection is about changing the subject. A true story. Um, I can recall being in a room with um, a group of people, and this one particular person, it just seems that people found them very, very interesting and were asking these questions. And the person's response was, let's talk baseball. Translation, I'm not discussing that. It's not open for dialogue with you. And I love that, right? Um, so when protection, changing the subject, but also protection is letting someone else reveal themselves without you rushing to correct the story, right? My number one point, protection is choosing peace over proving a point. That is wisdom. That is wisdom, right? So let me transition. Hopefully you got that. You guys are taking notes. But let me transition to talk about honoring your supporters. Now, I want to say this. While you are paying attention to the saboteurs, do not forget to honor your real supporters, right? Because sometimes we spend so much time hurt over who didn't show up that we overlook the people who actually did. Don't do that. Notice the people who encourage you. Notice the people who share your work. Notice the people who pray for you in earnest. Notice the people who speak your name in rooms and who will tell the truth with love. Notice the people who celebrate you without competing, or the people who support your growth without needing to control it. Those people matter. Your circle does not have to be large. It just has to be aligned. And I just want to tell you, my circle is really small. You know how you meet, I meet so many people that say they know me or don't, they don't know me. My circle is really, really, really small, right? And so you keep it small and you have those people who are aligned. You need people who can sit in the front row of your becoming and celebrate you without secretly hoping that you're going to fail. You need people who will tell you, I am so proud of you, and really mean it. And you need people who can hold your vulnerability without turning it into gossip, right? People who will challenge you, who are not trying to diminish you, right? And people who do not need you small in order for them to feel significant. That is real support. And when you have it, honor it, honor it, right? So I want to leave you with a few reflection questions. I guess that's what I would call it. And I'm going to ask you to, in earnest, really ask yourself this. Who has front row access to your life right now? Have they earned it? Who do you tell your dreams to? How do they respond? Who do you share your fears with? And do they handle them with care? Who celebrates when you win? It's a question. And who gets quiet when you grow? Who respects your boundaries? And who punishes you for having them? And y'all know what I mean, right? Some of you are right now being punished because you didn't respond to maybe something as basic and simple as a text. Never you mind that you could be very busy, you could be caught up. You know, if you're like me, I get a gazillion text messages, a gazillion spam calls, a gazillion emails, right? So pay attention. Pay attention to who is in that circle that brings you peace versus who is bringing you confusion. It's your homework. Who protects your name when you're not in the room, right? Who only wants information? Now, I'm going to ask you to really dig deep, you know, got your sheet going. Who is a supporter? Who is a spectator? Who is a saboteur in the seats? And maybe the biggest question of all is this. Have you confused someone's presence with their support? Hmm. Sit with that. Sit with that. Because your becoming deserves protection. You hear me when I say that. It does. It requires and deserves protection, right? So, a few affirmations for this week. First of all, I am allowed to be visible and discerning. I am allowed to live out loud without living exposed. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to protect my story, to protect my becomings. And here's the thing. Oh, please, let's get this, ladies. I will not confuse spectators with supporters. I will no longer give front row access to people who have been waiting for me to fall. I will not shrink because my growth makes others uncomfortable. And I want you to know that I will not stay silent while dying inside. Come on, ladies. I will share with wisdom. I will speak with clarity. I will set boundaries without guilt. I will love people without losing myself, right? These are all your reflections, your affirmations, right? Please, you can go back and listen, take notes, share this podcast. Your affirmation: I'm not bitter. I am wise. I am not hiding. I am becoming, right? So as we close part 2 in season 3 of Becoming, I want you to remember this. I keep seeing this. I want it to just, become a part of you till it's oozing out of you. You are allowed to live out loud. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to tell your story. You are allowed to become. But you are also allowed to protect your access. You don't owe everybody the details. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't owe everybody a front row seat. And I really hope you get this. Some people you can love from a distance. Some people can watch from the balcony as you continue to become. And this will probably be the one thing that you will really stick a pin in, is that some people can remain outside the room altogether. And that doesn't make you mean. It just makes you wise, because the woman that you're becoming, it deserves peace. It deserves protection. It deserves relationships that's going to honor your growth. People who are going to celebrate you without competing with you. People who can handle your confidence. People who can sit in the front row and genuinely root for your rise. And for those who can't, they don't get access to the sacred parts of your becoming. Why? Because you're no longer hiding. You're no longer shrinking. You're no longer staying silent just to keep other people comfortable. You are living out loud. But now that you're living out loud, you're living out loud with discernment. And that's the difference. So, ladies, gentlemen, professionals, all of you watching, again, I want to thank you for joining me in season 3 thus far. The Becoming. Right? Until this time next week, I'm going to ask that if there's something that resonated within this particular podcast with you, hey, like it, share it. Be sure and follow me on all the social media platforms, right? Unpack This is on all of your top podcast platforms: Spotify, Amazon, podcast, you name it, we're there. So follow me. And I want to thank you. Those of you who have been with me from the very beginning, I thank you, right? So I want you to keep leading with confidence. I want you to have clarity. I want you to be your true authentic self. And I want you to have discernment. You have been listening to Unpack This with the authentic coach, Gloria Bailey Ray. Until this time next week, be well, be blessed, and always remember you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. Peace, y'all.